Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to this week's real estate deal breakdown. Today, I'm talking about a property that I did in Newburgh, New York, and it is a pretty interesting property. I'm going to break it down from A to Z, and I'm going to tell you how did I find the deal? How did we make the deal happen on the purchase? How did we make the deal happen in the middle? And then how did we sell the deal and make a profit? And this was an interesting one because I don't do deals like this one that I'm going to tell you very often. So I'm excited to tell you how this ended up being a really good situation when it was getting a little rocky when we were in the middle of it. So if you're excited to hear about that, this is the right place to watch my videos or listen to my podcast. I am Greg. I've been a full-time investor now for 10 years. I've done at this point over 500 properties and I got a lot of experience. So everything you're going to learn from me here is real world deals, actual properties that I'm flipping. So if you get value from this, do me a favor. If you're watching this, if you could subscribe to my YouTube channel and like the video, if you can repost this on social media, that would mean a lot. So let's get into the deal today. This was a single family house that I ended up flipping in the town of Newburgh, which is a really good area, a little bit more affordable for Orange County, but still pretty expensive because anywhere around here is expensive now. And the way that we sourced this lead originally was through direct mail. This was like a 2 or 3 year follow-up. So the owner was down in Florida. They had a bunch of rentals up in this area. Their dad was a builder and they inherited the properties. So they were collecting rent and they had a few of these houses. I actually got to follow up with the seller on some of those other houses. But anyway, this one, there was a renter inside and the guy had some health issues, not the tenant, but the owner that we were dealing with had some health issues, needed to sell the property, didn't want to deal with the tenant in terms of, trying to sell it to them. More on that later. And he just wanted to sell. He wanted to liquidate his property. I believe it was paid off. So anyway, he agreed to sell us the property after 2+ years worth of follow-up. I'll say that again, 2+ years worth of follow-up. He agreed to sell us the property for $225,000. Now, this is a 3-bed, not a raised ranch, but like kind of like a split level property. I was going to buy it vacant, but then the guy's health issues weren't great. So I was like, you know what? I'll make it easier. I'll just buy it with a tenant inside. So I actually went out to the property, met the tenant, got a feel for him. He's a super nice guy, he's paying rent, nothing, no issues at all. We got talking, we became friendly, and he knew I was buying the property. So, anyways, I ended up closing on the property with the tenant inside. So I bought it occupied, which I normally don't do, but in this case, it called for it. So bought it occupied, and the tenant started paying me rent right away. He paid me the same rent that the other guy was charging, so I didn't raise the rent or anything like that. And it was, I guess, at the time, technically a rental, but I knew I was going to be selling the property. So the owner tried to sell the property to the tenant originally before I came into the picture, but there was some sort of an issue where the owner didn't have a lot of time to have the tenant get a mortgage. And it just was a situation where like the owner really needed certainty and he didn't get 100% certainty because there were some issues that had to get addressed that I don't think the owner was willing to deal with or put up the money for. So he was like, you know what, I'm just going to sell this to Greg. So when I spoke to the tenant, we originally were going to just do a cash for keys situation and I was going to pay him money to leave. But once we got talking, like this was not like your typical, like real estate deal tenant where you're buying a property when there's like a squatter in there. Like this was like a super nice guy, super normal tenant. And he mentioned to me, he said, listen, I was supposed to buy this from the old owner, but it never worked out, that he didn't want to replace, something in the garage. And I was like, oh, all right, well, that's interesting. I said, well, what if you bought it for me? What if you bought it for me? Obviously, you knew I bought this house and, I'm an investor. So, I'm probably not going to be able to give you the best deal like the old guy or the old seller gave you, but, we'll work something out that's fair. We're going to work something out that's fair where you feel like you're getting a decent deal and I can make a profit. Like we'll work something out. But if I could fix the issue that the owner didn't fix and spend my own money on it, and we agree on a number that you're happy with, would you just buy it from me? And he said, yeah, absolutely, I would. I said, okay, so we got to work out the number. So it took us a while to work that number out. That was a pretty lengthy negotiation. But anyway, what ended up going down was that the tenant was super qualified to buy this property, like super qualified, has a good job. He already had a bank lined up and everything was good. So I'm kind of thinking in my head, I'm like, why didn't this owner just go through with it? It didn't make any sense, but I guess it's to my benefit, in a certain way. So what ended up going down was I agreed to sell him the property for 320. And here's kind of where I want to stop in this video and break some stuff down. So I looked at the value of this property when I bought it. I believe the property, if it was upgraded a little bit, not even that much, was probably worth like 350. If I, upgraded, painted it, like didn't even do much to it. Like the house was in great shape. 350, maybe 360, 375, maybe, but I would say 350 to be fair and realistic. So I told the tenant, I said, listen, I think this property market value is about 350. I said, I'm not going to ask 350 for it for you because I'm not going to have to pay a commission. You know what I mean? You're the direct buyer. Real estate commissions are usually the biggest expense on a transaction for the most part. So I said, I'm not going to pay a commission and I want to give you some built-in equity here. You know what I mean? Like in that situation, if I were to sell that for 350, the commission on that would have been 4.5%. So the commission would have been almost 16,000 just alone, and then obviously other costs and whatnot. So I said, listen, how about we do this? I'll sell you the property for 320. So you'll have some like built-in equity day one. And then in 5, 10 years, when you go to sell it, it'll be worth a hell of a lot more. And you already bought it at a discount to begin with. And I said, listen, I'll do that for you. And I said, I'll also pay to get the issue fixed that you needed to get fixed that the owner didn't do. So I'll pay for that out of pocket. I have a good company that can deal with that. I said, I'll pay for that. You won't have to worry about that. I'll put a brand new one in there. I'll use my good vendor who knows what they're doing, and I'll make this thing right. Here's what I expect, though. I expect to get paid rent while this is going on, and he agreed, and that's totally fair. And I said, I also expect, this to be a fairly smooth closing. I don't want to have a lot of issues with your lender. I want this to be pretty smooth. And he's like, Greg, I'll tell you what, I'll make sure that happens. I'll make sure I get all my ducks in a row so this can actually go down. So we ended up agreeing on 320. I ended up getting to work with my vendor. We replaced the item we needed to replace. He was ecstatic about that because the old owner never did that. So we went into contract. He got his lender involved, and we ended up closing. It took about 6 weeks from time of contract to time of close. We were trying to do it in 4 weeks, but that just wasn't realistic. There were some other open items that we needed to close out, like just with the contract stuff. So it ended up working out. And I ended up making on the property, it was a $58,000 profit, which is awesome, and could I have made more if I sold it the traditional way? Yes, but I would have had to pay a full commission. And, I wanted to do the right thing with this tenant and give him the opportunity to buy it. And he was the takeaway that I got from this. And now there's more lessons I'll share in a minute. The biggest takeaway I got from this property was that the tenant was so grateful that I gave him the opportunity to buy the house because I was the owner. I bought it. I could have very well told the guy, listen, man, you got to get out. I'm selling this for top dollar. I'm not going to even consider selling it to you. But I didn't. I gave the guy the opportunity to buy it, and he was surprised by that. He was surprised that I stuck to my word and actually sold him the property, which, if I give somebody my word, I tell him I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it. And I gave him the opportunity to buy it, and he bought it, and he was really excited once we ended up closing and he got the property, and now he's a homeowner. So it was a really cool thing to see. He was really happy about the repair I made to the property. And I feel happy and grateful that the tenant bought the property under market value. There's a lot of good lessons I learned from this. So I'm going to give you the top 3, and hopefully you can take some of these lessons and apply them in your business. So lesson number 1, keep your word, right? If you say you're going to do something, do it, right? The tenant kept his word to me by being an easy buyer. I kept my word by honoring the price I told him and fixing the thing he needed me to fix. So keep your word. That's all you got in life is your word and your reputation. Lesson number 2, follow-up is key, right? This lead was in the follow-up queue for 2 years until we ended up converting it into a purchase. So as they say, and I've made this lesson before and I'll continue to make it, the fortune is in the follow-up. You have to realize the fortune's in the follow-up. Most deals are coming from follow-up. Not a lot of people are going to drop everything they're doing and sell their house on the spot. So you need to follow up, and sometimes you got to follow up for years like this one. And then lesson number 3 here, don't be greedy, right? I still made 58 grand. That's awesome. That's a great profit. Obviously, I'm in this business to make a profit. I want to buy low and sell high. But I could have very well, got the tenant out, collected rent the whole time, and then put a little bit of lipstick on the property, and I could have sold it for more money. But I didn't want to do that. I felt like in this situation, the right thing, which was the correct answer, was to give the tenant the ability to buy the house at a reasonable price and give him a little bit of a deal, which I did. And I'm glad I did that. And I feel better. I honestly feel better about leaving a little bit of money on the table and giving this tenant a good property than I would if I made an extra 15 grand, right? Like it's all good. It's baseball at the end of the day. So I'm happy leaving some money on the table for the tenant to have. So yeah, that's a property in Newburgh. Hopefully you got value from this video and the lessons were helpful. And if you're in the Hudson Valley, just like where this property was, you have a house you want to wholesale to me, I would love to buy it if the numbers make sense. Send me an email, greg@velocityhousebuyers.com, or drop me a DM on Instagram at grego37, and I'll see you on the next REI deal breakdown. Take care.